Hello, everybody, and it is such a great pleasure to be here. Beautiful souls, how is your solstice going? I hope you guys are having an incredible solstice, a beginning to a new phase, another cycle within this year, a season in which we come into a time of expansion, and also for the Southern Hemisphere going into the winter months of maybe more contraction, more nurturing time. So today we are doing day 15 of our 30-day challenge. And today we're going to talk about ancestral emotional patterns. I get asked this question a lot about how ancestral patterns function and how we can begin to use them and heal them when we come into traumatic experiences or experiences that we're unable to shake or utilize. So let me just quickly share this live, and please feel free to share this live as well. And I'm going to get started in just a minute. Hi, everyone. Hi, Greg. Hi, Truth Seeker. Hi, Cedric. Just waking up. Welcome. La Única Hoy. Hi, blessings. It's wonderful to be here. Hope yours is wonderful too. Thank you so much. Susanna V, hello. How are you? Wow, it's such a great pleasure to be here with you guys. I feel always reunited with you guys whenever we do our lives. It's like we create a little family here. So it's a great pleasure. So tonight, you guys, we are going to discuss ancestral emotional patterns, and we're going to talk about how to work with them, and we're going to access the root cause of these ancestral emotional patterns in order to create major change emotionally and energetically within the body. We're also going to talk about the energetic aspect of these cyclical ancestral emotional patterns and how profoundly they create, basically, in a way, a kind of potential purpose for your life. So let's get started. So when we talk about ancestral patterns, we are talking about cyclical belief systems. Now, these cyclical belief systems, when you trace them back, and I'm just going to share with you the story of how I came across this information really briefly. And I want to share with you that even though I had been meditating many years since 2000, since I was much younger, but really, really seriously meditating probably since 2008, 2007, and then meditating as a daily practice. But I had many questions that resulted from that silence, from that meditation, that allowed me to kind of ask questions that were very difficult to find answers in books or even in lectures. I would attend East West bookstore here in San Francisco and always looking for, information about how to heal, how to reintegrate. And I was never, ever able to find a teacher that was open about the techniques actually utilized to heal and reintegrate from some of these traumatic experiences, or just understand the emotions in a very deep way that were both energetic and emotional and psychological. So I felt like that was really missing. And so I decided to deep dive in my own self-inquiry to kind of understand what emotions are. And I'll tell you that even though I meditated a lot, utilizing running energy, when I started to do running energy, I noticed that it quickly removed debris from the multidimensional body, and debris is basically thought forms. And it was easier, as I learned to control the chakra system, to come into a state of observation. And I think that for those of you that have a hard time meditating, just existing, just being in a constant state of existence with yourself is actually not trying to meditate, but being in that existence. And then as soon as a thought comes up that creates a distraction, you can kind of like write it down, or you can, do something to bring it to mind, like raise your hand or move your hand or something like that. And these kinds of techniques really show you that when you're fully present in the physical body, distractions really don't show up, because you're kind of observing yourself, and you're existing in your physical body. And this is something that we don't do because we're used to being in survival mode. So this kind of meditation is something that was helpful for me, but proactive energy healing was actually where my life started to really change. And in combination with that proactive energy healing and understanding my emotions, that's where I really started to go deep into the subconscious mind. And following the emotional trails, the way you and I do in these practices, allowed me to question how these belief systems even came to be. And as I began to look at those around me, began to look at myself, I began to see patterns of emotional behaviors that really, I mean, we are in resonance with people, but I didn't even understand that yet until later, until I started to actually see energy. And that's how I began to kind of link the emotional emanations that we create, and also from the holographic DNA, the kind of information that's embedded, encoded in our entire life. So as I followed these emotional trails, I looked at father and mother lineage and how they behaved, their programming, how they came to create the environment that allowed me to take on these belief systems. And all of those things really made me question, programming. And as you begin to follow these programs and you go down the ancestral lineages, you begin to see that these are cyclical patterns that are brought down through, history. And even more so, when you look at the bigger picture, you begin to see that depending on what part of the world you're from, culture plays a huge role in our emotional patterns. Religion plays a tremendous role in emotional patterns, a tremendous role. And it really is incredibly amazing to understand that, because you begin to understand the motivation behind a lot of these belief systems. A lot of these belief systems are placed in order to create fear. Belief systems about our own emotions, like, you shouldn't be angry, or you shouldn't feel this negative emotion, or you shouldn't, have these kinds of thoughts. And this constant belief systems of restriction, of judgment, separation are very harmful to us, because they don't allow the human to be able to explore all the ranges of its expression, which is necessary for us in order to even begin to transcend into higher understandings of what we are as energy. So these belief systems can be very damaging and limiting, really, to our ability to expand and heal. So if you begin to follow and trace back why religion kind of branched out into little sects with these specific belief systems that can be incredibly limiting, you begin to understand how politics plays a role, economy plays a role, systems of control, and you begin to understand the roots of these belief systems that go all the way back to the very beginning of time, where you begin to understand how the structures of reality were created, a compartmentalized reality, layer by layer of society and belief systems, in order to separate things as much as possible in our reality. And this separation creating a tremendous confusion and a disconnect between the source and the human body and the human experience. So these cyclical patterns and these cyclical belief systems can be very hard to break, because they have been embedded in us. And if you understand evolution, from the standpoint that our genetic code is learning from every generation, every new generation is adapting energetically and physically in order to adapt to that next potential replay and reliving of these same patterns. So if you look back at your lineage, your ancestral lineage, if your family has been a part of wars, if your family has been a part of genocides, abuse, the Inquisition, think about all these major world events through history that we have all participated in as a whole. We have that same trauma in our genetic code. And this is scientifically proven in that there were many tests done on little mice that they would traumatize them, they would harm them somehow, and they would, and these are experiments done over years, right? So little mice would have, their little mice, and then when they would put them through the experiment of this same trauma, they learned over time not to engage in that specific event or experience. So this is something that we are formed, we are genetically modified. Genetically modification occurs in many different ways because of how the epigenetic design of our DNA that can be affected by our environment, by our emotions, by the things that we're eating, by the things that we are thinking and feeling, all is writing the code of everything that you are. And everything that you have experienced in your life is encoded in your DNA in a way that your next generation that will be born is going to embody the same belief system, and it's embedded even in the nervous system of the organism that's being born. So when they looked at these 10 generations down from the little mice that were traumatized in this original experiment, these little mice absolutely could not have that same experience. They would do anything to avoid that experience. So in other words, their DNA has been genetically modified in order to programmed in order to react and respond in a certain way to these same experiences. So if you think about that, we experience these greater global traumas. Our children, 10 generations from now, will be living out the side effects of everything that we've lived out together, for example, over the past 2 years during these lockdowns. And we are going to, in the next couple of years, have a lot of psychological side effects. And I'm already dealing with them in my practice with my clients, with my hypnotherapy clients, where there's a lot of trauma, social trauma. There's a lot of fear about going out, a lot of fear about uniting and connecting with one another. And it only took 2 years to create this kind of social trauma. A trauma that has been embedded in many different ways through social media, through the news, and of course, through these global events. So if you think about that, it can be very easy, as we saw in the past 2 years, to modify the belief system. And when a collective group goes through an incredibly intense experience that causes traumatic events, the entire vibrational signature of that entire human race is also affected, because our DNA has an emanation of frequency. Every single human being has a signature that's a vibrational frequency that is the product of your entire being, everything that you are simultaneously in different timelines, everything that you've been in your ancestral lineage, and all the belief systems that you're embodying and incorporating and applying into your everyday life in this current moment. So what's really important about that is that we can begin to break these cyclical patterns in coming in the present moment, okay? Because otherwise, as I've mentioned many times on this channel before, we are repeating and responding mechanically to triggers. And even when we're watching TV, even when we're listening to the news, even when we're engaged in any activity where we are acting mechanically without conscious awareness, we are engaging and strengthening certain belief systems and certain emotional patterns. Our lack of awareness strengthens emotional patterns of trauma. And that's something that many of us don't really understand because we continue to be in a hypnosis and we're very happy to escape and to not feel what is happening in the physical body. As a result of the things that have happened in the past couple years, humanity is split up in two directions. Either those that are embodied in their physical body energetically and cultivating that soul source connection to the physical body and anchoring, and then the other group that is actually not wanting to come into the physical body, and they are hovering above the physical body. So what's going to happen with this kind of separation is that we are having a split of creation and counter creation, which we have always had. It's just become more defined now because those that are in survival mode are in a state of counter creation. Those that have chosen to be in a state of thriving, living, and health and vitality and joy and bliss, all those things are now coming into a very creative way of being. Okay, so these two splits that we're experiencing in the collective is also from the bigger picture, because you know that we are a teeny tiny little speck in a multiverse, right? Just like this cell in your body, we are probably on a tiny little cell on someone's hand in some faraway, greater macro picture of what we're experiencing. But that being said, there is some kind of balance on some level from the highest level looking down that is being maintained in this three-dimensional plane. However, it does not mean that it avoids the laws of how we are evolving collectively. Because as always, even though we can choose to be counter-creative or creative, those that are counter-creative are going to be experiencing the dissolving of that soul back into reincarnation cycles. Those that are looking to strengthen their source can raise the frequency in order to experience other dimensional expressions, which they are a match to. And this kind of split that is occurring, right, and has always been occurring, allows an opportunity to experience potentially something other than what we're experiencing at this time. But that shouldn't be our focus. Our focus is to be able to bring this organism, just like that tiny little cell on that tiny little universe, far away, to its highest potential balance. And why it's important for us to do that is because, in a sense, through you become a vessel, a channel of infinite consciousness, of source, anchoring it into this human, in this physical experience, in this little cell that we call Earth. We are anchoring life. And the more of us that do that, we are shifting into a higher dimensional octave collectively. Okay. And again, there will be a split. More of those people that are in a state of counter creation are also going to continue to move in the direction of cyclical pattern. And how right now this matrix functions is that cyclical patterns, if we continue that mechanical behavior, we go right back into a reincarnation cycle. Now, there's nothing wrong with the reincarnation cycle, but we are in resonance to re-experiencing cyclical ancestral traumas until those traumas are shifted in that vibrational frequency. How we shift ancestral cyclical traumas is by no longer repeating those cyclical traumas in this current lifetime. So this is what this work is all about. In this moment, during this lifetime, the more that you become aware of the cyclical patterns that are counter-creative to you, you can shift them to transmute them and to utilize that understanding into creating very creative ways of existing. And in this case, our genetic code is also edited. It's changed. So the next generations that come in are coming in with a new code. Every single generation that comes in has the tools, and there's different levels of genetic modification that is occurring. Genetic modification is occurring as a collective human race, and this is, again, looking at the lower level, more dualistic aspect of the human experience. We are being genetically modified by the foods we're eating, the belief systems that we're adapting in our life, the emotional patterns, everything in the physical experience. On the higher level, in the interdimensional realm, there's also other levels of genetic modification, one of which is a hybridization program, and another, which is an energetic splitting, fragmentation that occurs to the physical organism through emotional trauma. And the fragmentation, the more that you fragment a human soul, the more that it becomes entangled and enmeshed within this matrix hologram, okay? This matrix, which we call the Earth, is tied to multiple dimensional levels, primarily from, the first, second, and third dimensional plane. But in the heart, the throat, and the third eye, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional plane, is the access point of this vortex within the body that has the ability of shifting its rotation. Through high vibrational emotions, high vibrational frequency, we can spin our rotation of our vortex of this physical body in order to align to higher dimensional expressions. And of course, the opposite of that is counter-creative and spinning in a counter-creative spin, okay? So this is really important to understand because our emotional output, again, it's creation. It is directed emotional energy, creative or destructive energy. And there's nothing wrong with either of those, but I think awareness is important so that you can choose kind of what you're going to be participating in. So ancestral cyclical patterns have to do with many things. When your soul attaches to your ancestral lineage, you are literally attaching to a certain set of belief systems that have been encoded in the ancestral lineage since the very beginning of time. And as soon as you become aware of those ancestral lineages, you can become aware of many things, including your purpose. One of the potential timeline purposes that you have on this earth, which is to end these cyclical patterns. That's one thing. That's an option. The second potential option for you is to reintegrate the fragments from all of your ancestral lineage that have fragmented from these cyclical potential patterns. And in what I've experienced during 2 months of sitting and meditating, doing this very, very heavy work, is the ability to embody absolute neutrality, that point of singularity where the consciousness is embodied in the physical body and you begin to experience bliss and unity with yourself and everything. And it is one of the most healing and magical experiences that we have as humans, because you begin to tune in to the higher form of existing as a human and as an interdimensional human, not just within the patterns that we have been programmed. And living in an interdimensional way allows you to experience heightened intuition, healing abilities for yourself and others, telepathic communication, traveling and navigating in the astral planes, and working and becoming aware of all of your past lifetimes. Because these cyclical patterns, what we have embedded in our astral and ancestral lineage is all of the past lifetimes that are linked to all of the family members, the soul group that make up this ancestral timeline. So, in other words, there is so much incredible healing that can take place by just simply understanding the patterns that you are living in this current time. So in order to understand and work with them on a deeper level, in this meditation today, we're going to take a look at some of the patterns that we have identified in our lineage, and we're going to begin to work with that. Okay, so let's get started. I want to welcome everybody to our chat, everybody that's here. So great to see all of you. We have a question from Cedric. Is contacting our ancestral lineage within our human DNA, mitochondria, telomeres, or the energy outside or around us externally? So you can say that your ancestral DNA that holds all of this information is your mitochondria, because the mitochondria is basically an aggregate copy of the before. So it's the most complete database of everything that you have ever been. It is both physical and etheric. The information that we're tuning into is both physical and etheric. The telomeres are really just a part of your DNA that is responsible for accessing and blocking data from being written into the codes and into your genetic code. So it's kind of like one of the most important aspects of your database and the writing of your genetic information. But when we're talking about this information, this is holographic aspect of yourself. It's what makes up the morphogenetic field, instruction manual to create your hologram. So everything that Cedric is, his body, facial features, belief systems, emotions, even facial expressions are all a product of all of the encoded programs within the genetic code going down the ancestral lineage. And from the energetic side, it's basically how much source connection the vessel has the capacity of embodying at any given time. That is that he's repeating the same cyclical patterns. The moment you break those patterns, you completely change the genetic makeup of your body and etherically begin to expand your ability to hold more light. The idea is that we train ourselves to hold more light. The lower emotions that we sustain in the physical body for prolonged amounts of time, the less amount of source we can channel through the body. So the ancestral lineage also, I mean, it's a complex topic, because the ancestral lineage also, all of our ancestors that we are working with in when we're looking at our past lives, we have to remember that we have been cycling through soul groups for a very long time. And these soul groups are managed by councils, not just one council, but many councils that have invested per se in the genetic modification of soul groups that are here on Earth. And these councils are kind of the makeup of your genetic information within the multidimensional expression. So for example, DNA from somebody in the 11th dimension, that's input into your code. DNA from 13th, DNA from 8th dimension, it's inputted in your code. And you, because of your code, you have 9, 11, 13, you have access through the vortex of your physical body and through the morphogenetic field. You have access to the information and the database of all the ancestrals in that dimensional expression. Okay, so this is how we have ancestral lineages. And because we are one, again, you and I have somebody in common just 2,000-3,000 years ago. In other words, imagine on a bigger scale with interdimensional beings, we are also all interrelated, and we become interrelated through the hybridization program that's been existing since the beginning of time. It is the way that organisms are created and embedded into the matrix hologram. They are fractals of soul imprints that are encoded in the Akashic records. So the Akashic record contains the information of all the potential timelines, all the potential soul groups that are participating in this matrix hologram. And every single world has its own kind of genetic expression. It has its own kind of Akashic field, as well as the galaxy. Our immediate solar system has its own genetic data within the sun. Okay, and then the galaxy has its own genetic data that it has all the information of all the organisms created within that galaxy, and so on and so forth. In the multiverse, every single organism has its own record keeper of how that database is interacting with one another. So it's just like the cells in our body are interacting with one another, and they are learning and behaving based on certain instruction manuals for their highest survival. We're kind of functioning in that same way. So our ancestors, we have been experiencing with them there is no time. This is simultaneous sphere of experiences that we're sharing with our ancestors. Okay, and we recognize a lot of these ancestors when we do past life regression. We recognize people. Our father could have been our daughter, our brother could have been our husband in a past life. And so all of these groups, these soul groups, are connected by resonance. And the resonance is defined in that ancestral group by the genetic information that makes up this spectrum of frequency. Okay, spectrum of frequency being the different dimensional planes and all of the expressions that are existing within those dimensional planes. So in other words, we have this incredible capacity to become one and to begin to reintegrate. Reintegrating, in other words, simply means becoming aware of yourself as everything. That's really what it means. And this is what we do when we're doing that kind of, heavy, deep work. So thank you, Cedric, for that question. I hope that answers your question. Please let me know if you have any more. What to do if I don't know my ancestral history? Adoptee, yes. So, okay, this is a really great question that I get asked a lot in my sessions, and we come across this. I work with a lot of adopted children and adults in my practice, and you might think that being adopted means that you are separate from your family lineage, but in fact, you are already designed to have this life with this second soul group. Okay, so you are in resonance with both families. Not only that, both families are in resonance with one another. So when we are adopted, we are born in one family and then we go live in another family. These two families are in resonance to one another. So it's just like when we find our soulmate in our life, or a partner in our life that we're living with. We come together in resonance. Everything in this universe is grouped by resonance, comes together by resonance. These are the laws of how creation functions. These two unite and then create. So in that same way, these two genetic lineages have united to create this experience for you as an adopted person that is living, born in one lineage and raised by another lineage. Why? Because the cyclical programs, the ancestral programs that are available for you to end and heal, you have had with both ancestral lineages for a very long time. And it's a really, really powerful work. People that are adopted are incredibly powerful. If you would look at them in a higher dimensional plane, this is the same kind of thing for twins, okay? And it's the same kind of thing for adopted children, because the kind of potential they have to end cyclical patterns, very heavy cyclical patterns, means that they have to address the two resonant programs. They have to end them, heal them, of those two families. Okay, so it's a lot of work, because a lot of times it's really difficult for us to find our biological parents. But we don't need to find the biological parents. You can find this information by going inside. And this is why I'm sharing my story with you, because I didn't know anything about, my ancestors. I mean, we talked minimally about my grandparents, my great-grandparents. We knew a couple things here and there. But actually, I found out a lot more about my family through my meditation and my healing work. Because the information is in the Akash, it's in the collective genetic code, it's in your genetic code, and you're accessing that information through this meditation work. You bring that information in so that you can heal it. I'll give you an example. Sexual abuse, alcoholism, can go down this family lineage for centuries until you find its origin in the Inquisition, or when the Spaniards came to South America, for example. Okay, and when that happened in my family lineage, it was a major trauma for the union between the Spaniards, Europeans, and the indigenous people. And this trauma caused generations of trauma, because not only did that happen, these two bloodlines mixed, but also religion, like Catholicism, was imposed in that culture. So the suppression, the belief systems, and the interruption of a certain culture was completely embedded in that genetic code. So if you can imagine the kind of side effects that came as a result of that kind of trauma, generation after generation, the amount of constriction, imbalanced roles in feminine, masculine roles, patriarchal belief systems that caused incredible amounts of traumas within the family lineage, the women and the men. Okay, that kind of suppression is something that's really hard to heal from. And in our families today, we are still experiencing the residual of those traumas, and we have to work through them, because even though we think we are a new generation, we are playing out those same roles. That's the thing. So this is how we end up really, we're thinking that our trauma is in the past lives. I guarantee you, unless you have resolved all the trauma in your life, you don't really have too much business going into other lifetimes. I noticed that people have incredibly severe trauma in childhood, trauma which they don't want to remember. And so usually those people will jump to other lifetimes as a more compassionate means of accessing the same information. Okay. And this is the beauty of this kind of profound work. We begin to access not really like metaphors, but different ways of looking at belief systems that are encoded and being expressed from our genetic code. So thank you so much for that question. Super, super important. I hope that answers your question. Also, you said 9 weeks old. That's another thing I will mention. When you're an adoptee and you're healing this ancestral trauma, notice the age that you were adopted, okay? Because there's some very important ways of looking at trauma. Children that were adopted after the age of 7 have really strong embedded patterns from the original family, or from being taken from one family to the next, or going into orphanages or foster homes, and whatever they had to deal with in those scenarios. All of that kind of trauma is really the foundation of their belief systems for their entire life. And so oftentimes there's already very profound belief systems that are going to be a little bit more difficult to break for children that are just now finding stability at a later age. And some of these children never find stability. They never find a home that's actually feels safe. And this is the kind of program that we have to assist our children and our humans to heal from, because essentially, this is just a fragmentation of belief system of separation that we need to break. The whole concept of family is an illusion. And this is something that for me was actually one of the most traumatizing things, even now today, to be able to learn that the roles that we apply to mother and father, we have to break those, because in reality, we are all humans learning and evolving in order to find our way to source and to bliss and to unconditional love. So this kind of lifts off the pressure that we have over one another. And in a way, it's a way of coming into a compassionate maturity of looking at ourselves as the most vulnerable state in childhood, where we believe we need to have, these support systems to provide us education. So the best time to heal is right now. Right now, we have to go back to all the fragments of ourselves as children, and we need to heal and reintegrate them. We have to parent ourselves and heal from those traumatic experiences. So thank you so much, Brian, John, hello, Lisa, Greg, Eris. This seems so depressing. Greg, yeah, I understand what you mean, but in reality, I believe that this is actually very, very enlightening and very freeing, because we begin to understand that we are not tied to any belief system. We are not our trauma, and our trauma doesn't define us. Our ancestral lineages don't define us. Nothing defines us. We are seeing ourselves, and the more we move away from definitions and labels and names, the more compassionate and fluid our existence can become. So this can be a very liberating and expansive experience, or something that's very contracting. Yeah, so thank you so much. There needs to be names for different types of trauma. Yeah, there can be. Mama Ren, thank you so much. All my love. Thank you for your super chat and your support. Love you. Stone Hobbit, so great to see you here. Lindy Lou. Man from Daytona, Kevin, so good to see you. I have had one of those experiences last week on a full moon, but I've been unable to get back there. Greg, that's great. Let's keep trying. Let's all keep trying. We all have breakthroughs. You're welcome, Carrie Ann. Thank you so much, Siobhan. Wow, Siobhan, thank you for that super chat. Thank you very much. That's very kind. Very, very humbled by your support. Thank you. Kevin, moderators can come around to do your dirty dudes. Well, you can. Doing my best to clean up any kind of weird stuff here. Sam says, hello, if we have already had children before healing and recoding the ancestral lines, does the codes also change within the children already born, or will they have to do their own healing? Yes, Sam, thank you for that question. Yes, we can heal from the higher levels. What does that mean? Remember that we're one, and our morphogenetic field is kind of like a lattice in which we're all existing. Okay, so when we start changing and healing and reintegrating our fragments, because we're connected, your child, you've existed with that child in other lifetimes, potentially and probably many lifetimes. Okay, and this child that's being born, even the hybrid children, I will say that even the hybrid children that are being born are encoded with your genetic information, which means that they have had, through resonance, some other history within your ancestral lineage at some point. So these children that are being born are encoded with all the tools to pull the genetic lineage even further than you perhaps are potentially able to move forward with your healing. We move the lineage forward with healing. We are evolving. We evolve through raising the vibrational frequency, because when you change your frequency, you become a match to the natural cycles of evolutionary movement that we're experiencing collectively. Okay, so when we start doing our healing work, we begin to shift vibrational frequency. And I've noticed this incredibly powerful change in my own home when I was able to embody my presence. People around me would change immediately, okay? Because then it is a language of frequency. Please understand, you don't even need to say anything. Because being in the present moment is not common, okay? It's breaking the narrative. It's breaking the collective hypnosis. So when you really come into a state of observation, you're going to look like a weird person that's spacing out. You're going to look like very childlike, very innocent, very joyful. And because most of us are in a constant state of survival, that looks weird and different. And we're not used to genuine expressions. Let's say you go into a circle of people, your friends that you usually hang out with. If you embody your genuine connection and presence, you'll notice that things that people do mechanically, you're not going to want to do. Let's say somebody says a joke that is really, let's say, demeaning and not really very authentic and real. Everyone else might laugh. They might not even think it's funny, but they will respond and react to that mechanically. But a person that's conscious and awake will kind of be very hyper aware of what's being expressed, and they're going to take a step back and not respond mechanically. So immediately your vibrational frequency creates a complete interruption in this kind of energetic flow. And you are changing and shifting the environment with your expression. So it affects people. And what I've noticed happen, they come into themselves. They will come into their presence. They will kind of take a step back and be like, oh, yeah, we can breathe, we can observe, we can first question how we want to interact and experience this right now. And just that example, imagine doing that with your children. With children, it's very hard. We have, especially young kids are very hyperactive and energetic, and they're doing all kinds of things. But what I've noticed is that parents, especially the mother, when she comes into a state of grounding and connection and awareness, the child comes into a state of grounding, connection, safety, awareness, acknowledgement. All of the things that the child needs is then given to the child. So the child won't act out. Because remember that a lot of these, ways of acting out, like screaming, yelling, hyperactive behavior, is oftentimes a mechanism for survival and coping with environments that are very difficult. And that child had to experience a lot of heightened emotions within the womb of the mother. And as a father, you might not be aware of the kind of emotions that your child felt in the womb. You don't know what your wife or partner may have been thinking. Maybe they were under a lot of stress. Maybe they were fearful. So the child is encoded with all of these subconscious belief systems that maybe that person, the mother, is not even aware of. You see, so this is how complex they are. So just by shifting and coming into the present moment, you can begin to shift and hold space for the child to begin to change. Let's take it to the next level. Go to meditation. Start doing integration work, contractual work with your child. Begin to clear karmic cyclical patterns that you have embedded in the womb as a parent and everyday experience with them. you start to break those cyclical belief systems and patterns, and you begin to work at the higher level. So now what's going to happen is that the child is going to become aware of themselves, and they're going to begin to question that same belief system that you were working on in your meditation. It's really amazing. Losing my breath here. It's very amazing because I have not only, and I'm talking about these things not because they're concepts or because I've read about this in a book. This is experience. This is things that I have lived and I have seen my clients live through. So this is how we can begin to affect the collective. When we say that when you embody your highest expression, you begin to affect the collective, we mean you're because of your frequency change, you're beginning to hold space for collective movement. So it's really huge. It's really huge, Sam. So thank you for that amazing question. Siobhan, thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you. Cedric, thank you. Thank you, Cedric. Thank you for that super chat. Thank you so much. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, Monty Python. Yes, Eris, yes. Monet, great point. Siobhan says, I can't remember my childhood trauma memories, but it helped when you discussed tuning into the feeling. Exactly, Siobhan. So that's another thing I really want to highlight, that when we're working with childhood trauma, you don't need to relive the traumatic experiences. I work a lot with people that have had experiences in their life that are so traumatic that you don't want to revisit them. And there's a reason for that. The body is preserving itself because it's really interesting, the effects of trauma on the energetic field. Not remembering your trauma is an opportunity for you to heal in a way that's faster, actually. It's a more compassionate way that you have helped yourself cope with those experiences. Dave, thank you so much for that super chat. Let us remember we're all here saying, thank you so much. Love you. Love you so much, Dave. Thank you. Definitely check out Dave's show on Space.radio. So what happens in this case with dealing with these kinds of, memories is that you will have a memory of an emotion that you have felt throughout your entire childhood. And that's actually the key to unlocking the trauma. And what I find a lot in my practice is that once we have done a couple sessions really working with those belief systems and those emotions, and why I say a couple sessions is because, in a session, we work with one or two memories. And even though we reach the root cause of these memories, we're unpacking a plethora of information that we can go down those rabbit holes. You can spend all day unpacking that information. But of course, we don't have that kind of time. So you need to continue that work. And you will enter into deeper depths of understanding those programmed emotions. And you might revisit this emotion later on because everything is cyclical. Okay, so we are learning many different perspectives of one emotion. You're understanding love in many different ways. You're understanding fear in many different ways. So finding that root belief and emotion can help you open up, not just within this lifetime, but many lifetime repeated experiences of that trauma. And that's usually the case, especially for really powerful traumatic experiences. We oftentimes have been cycling through those traumas for a very long time. So yeah. Greg, that's me. Lots of trauma in childhood. I've got enough to heal. Ellen says, hi, Geraldine. Thank you so much for all your time and effort. I can't remember parts of my childhood where I've been abused. I want to work on that, but do I need to remember everything? No, Ellen, just as I was saying. And I do have a couple videos of that, but we'll go into cyclical trauma today. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much, 80s horror fan. Thank you. Truth Seeker, yeah. Thank you so much. Greg says, do you have emotional release every time you retrieve a fragment? emotional release, if you can clarify what that means, what you're going to have and what I have learned to find, every single meditation that I do is productive. If I end up with the same negative emotions that I came into my meditation, all I did was get stuck in the sensations of the emotions, the analytical part of the emotions, and I haven't integrated anything. So actually, the healing process can be very fast. You identify the emotion, you understand the root of the emotion, and you provide the healing for that root. And just that alone is going to shift vibrationally, emotionally, psychologically, and neurologically within your multidimensional body. Okay, so and we become better at this over time. Okay, so yeah. I had a huge revelation yesterday after your session about me carrying my mother's trauma and never realizing it. Awesome, Siobhan. That makes me really happy. Thank you. I'm so glad you did that. All right, my love. So I'm going to jump into the meditation right now. And let's get started. I want everybody to begin by inhaling deeply with every breath you take. And we're going to begin by grounding down to the center of the earth. Begin to come into a state of stillness. Breathing deeply. And as you come fully in your physical body, begin to bring your body into a state of stillness, feeling out all the buzzing sensations of the movements, thoughts, emotions that come into the body, and gently bringing our attention back to our breath. Breathing yourself into a state of neutrality, of observation. As you begin to observe your body, all you're going to do right now is you're just going to exist. Just exist. Just exist in this moment, in all your expression, in all that you are, without fear, without doubt. Without any kind of resistance, just exist. And as you experience existing, this is where the mind begins to quiet down. You're not focusing on anything. All you're doing is existing. With every breath you take, just existing. Grounding down to the center of the earth now, bringing yourself fully into your body. You're going to begin to focus on the root chakra at the base of the spine and visualize shrinking that chakra down to the size of a dime. Going up to the sacral, shrinking that chakra down to the size of a dime. Solar, shrinking that chakra down to the size of a dime. I'm going to go up to the heart. Visualize expanding the heart chakra front and back. And we are still just existing. Going up to the throat, expanding the throat. Notice how the body becomes very still, very present. Going up into the third eye. Going up into the crown. Expanding the crown. Begin to review your day. What are some of the emotions that you felt throughout your day? The more unconscious you were today, the harder it's going to be to point out your emotions easily. But I want you to focus on your physical body. Focus on any discomfort in the body. And in that discomfort is where all the emotional memory of your day is hidden, is recorded. So as you begin to focus on all the parts of the body that are holding on to emotional records of your day, just sit and observe, picking up everything that you have experienced today. And all the emotional memory of the body. Go ahead and identify what is the emotion that we most felt throughout the day today. Go back to the past week now. You're going to go back to the past month now. It's going to be easier and easier for you to identify these emotions as you observe yourself. And you're going to recognize things about yourself that you didn't recognize before. Just observing, how often are you in survival? How often are you in a state of love? Let's go back to the past year. As you begin to identify the patterns of emotions and the patterns of triggers now, what are the things that trigger these emotions? Are those triggers things that occur, people, scenarios that are currently in your environment? Or are they things that we seek out? What are the patterns that you used to coming into emotionally? You're going to go back now to the past year as you begin to observe the emotions and the patterns over the past year. Going back to the past 5 years. Ten years. How much have you changed in the past 10 years? In regards to your emotional patterns. Take a look at yourself. Now, as you start going into childhood, notice the choices that you have made throughout your life. How many of these choices were made in order to maintain in a comfort zone where these patterns are being repeated? As you begin to observe now, you're going to start to have a certain memory that you keep going to. It could be one, it could be a few memories. What is the emotion that comes out the most for you? The past 24 hours, the past week, the past month, the past year, going back throughout your life. I want you to pick one emotion that keeps coming up the most for you, one belief system, one emotion. And go ahead and select a memory that highlights this emotion. It could be one, it could be many. Just observe who or what triggers this emotion in you. Usually it'll be one person that you very vividly remember. But as you begin to observe, you begin to notice that many people around you triggered this belief system as well. And as you begin to observe that, I want you to just very briefly notice the repetitive patterns in those around us, how they reach this emotion as well, how they mirror this emotion as well. Go ahead and scan in your body. Where does this emotion live? Where is it stored within the body? You might notice that it's the part of the body that maybe has some kind of complications. Maybe some aches, some pain, some discomfort. Some things are not working at their optimal in these areas. Go ahead and focus on the parts of the body where this emotion lives. It's been existing there for a very long time. Every organ in the body is connected to planets in our solar system and also has to do with the organization of information that makes up your energetic expression, your signature, even your time of birth is a photocopy of the universe that is encoded in every organ in the makeup of your body, of the archetype that you've embodied in this lifetime, in order to be able to transcend this root emotion. So as you begin to focus on this part of the body, go ahead and be present with this emotion, as I'm sure it's very vivid in your body at this time. And just observe this emotion in the body. Notice how it becomes more strong. I just want you to name out the emotions that begin to arise as you observe this emotion. You might get images of other memories of your life. You might get other emotions. Go ahead and name out those emotions inside of this emotion. If it's hard for you to define the emotion, focus on the discomfort that you feel within the body as you feel what you feel. The body is unpacking layers of information for you right now, and you are reading it like a book. So just observe. The more you observe, the more you will pick up. You're observing with all your senses. Some of you are visual, some of you are sentient, some of you will feel it in the physical body, some of you will know it, some of you will hear it. So just tune into your ability to read your body and translate the emotional data into information for yourself. Okay. You'll notice that now your attention is taken to another part of the body. Go ahead and focus on that part of the body and the emotion that lives there. And I want you to recognize this emotion. How familiar are you with this emotion? You have just uncovered the root emotion. So as you feel this emotion, many other emotions might start coming up in the body, sometimes strong reactions, sometimes we might get very emotional as we feel this, because a lot of trapped emotions are sitting within this belief system in the body. So go ahead and allow yourself to be present with this. And you're going to take yourself back to the very first time that you felt this emotion. Take yourself there. Notice where you are, notice who you're with. Notice the parts of your body that begin to highlight. Be present with that emotion. And I want you to notice who's triggering this emotion within you. Go ahead and pick one of these people that are playing the role of the trigger in this scenario. Go ahead and see them in front of you. As you begin to observe them, you're going to see a cord connecting your body to theirs. As you feel the emotion in your body, I want you to ask yourself, what is causing you to feel this way? You're going to get a lot of impressions as to why you feel this way. Memories of this person that is in front of you, how they have interacted with you in order to cause you to feel this way. You will also have a profound understanding in their belief systems, ways that they behave, reasons for that behavior. Just watch, just observe and learn without any judgment. You are just observing. As you allow this information to come to surface, you will begin to feel an expansion within your body. It will be easier for you to observe this information. I want you to direct your attention to the person in front of you now. And I want you to tune in to them as we begin to remote view them. What causes them to trigger this emotion in us? Is it a survival mechanism for them? Is it a very strong belief system? Is it their circumstances? What is occurring? Just observe without judgment. Okay. And as you find your answers, I want you to keep questioning, why do they have those belief systems? Where did they get those belief systems? And go ahead and tune in and see what you hear. Right now, you are reading the Akashic layers of information that are inside your genetic hologram. You might think that these are memories of things you've heard and that things that you know, but the majority of this information you're tuning into from your own hologram. These are imprints, emotional imprints, impressions that you received energetically and through the frequency and emotional imprints of this person. So just go ahead and tune in. What are the belief systems that this person held in order to behave this way? Why? Why do they behave this way? What do they believe will happen if they do not behave this way? And I want you to go deeper. Where did they get those belief systems? Take a look at their life, their upbringing. Where did they get those belief systems? You're going to begin to tune into information about their parents. Allow yourself to receive all the information you need to know in order to understand. You're going to get images, impressions, understandings, words, memories, pictures. And I want you to keep going down this ancestral lineage as you begin to follow and form a kind of like an ancestral tree of how this belief system developed within this family line. You're going to feel yourself going deeper into a state of meditation at this point because you're reaching a theta level. And I want you to begin to go deep as you begin to read your holographic system. Take a look at their grandparents and the grandparents before that. Why did they believe they needed to adopt these survival mechanisms, these emotions, these belief systems? Where did they get those belief systems from? And just allow yourself to look at the deeper picture. Go all the way back your ancestral lineage. Go back to their country of origin, where they were born. Go back to their ancestral lineage. And it begins to become clear how these patterns of cause and effect begin to develop in the subconscious belief systems of the collective. As you're taken back, I want you to take yourself as far back as you can into your ancestral lineage to begin to observe the origin of this belief system. Take a look at the origin of this belief system. You get a lot of information. Breathing deeply. As you begin to see crowds of your ancestral lineages going all the way back to their origins, you're going to begin to see many of your ancestors that have been affected by this belief system before you. Take a look at them, your brothers, your sisters in the higher realms that have all been affected by this belief system. You might see wars, you might see some terrible traumas, some violence, abuse, abandonment, all of the things of our human race that have caused and triggered these belief systems in our societies. And just without any judgment, your body should be completely neutral right now. If you're tensing up in strong emotions, it means that you're judging what you're watching, and that's not the exercise. The exercise is to be in absolute peace because you are reading and you're observing the data bank of your ancestral lineage. So as you begin to see all of your ancestors in front of you, I want you to notice the origin point of this belief system. What part of the world is holding on to the origin point of this emotional pattern? See if you can see that. What is it that all of these ancestors need from yourself to your person, down their entire lineage? What do they need in order to no longer feel this way? What is the opposite of this belief system? Okay. How does one achieve that new way of being? What is it that they need? What are some of the tools that they need from themselves in order to embody this new way of seeing and being? Take a look at that. What do they need from themselves in order to embody this? once and for all. If your body tenses up when you're answering this question, it means that a part of you doesn't believe or trust that you're capable of embodying this. So continue asking yourself, what is it that you need from yourself in order to finally embody it? Sit with any discomfort that might arise as you answer these questions. And as you observe the discomfort, you get your answers. Breathing deeply. I want you to surround all of these ancestors in a gigantic field of golden light. And I want you to fill all of them with what you have discovered that they need. You're going to bring down from source a powerful ray of this knowledge, of this wisdom that they require in order to embody their highest expression. Go ahead and infuse them with this new wisdom, with these new tools, with these new understanding of how to navigate these experiences, these fearful experiences. All of these ancestors that are behind this person that triggered the emotion in you are parts of us. They are fragments of ourselves. Okay. Breathing deeply. Breathing deeply. So you're looking at yourself in the higher dimensional levels. As you see all of these fragments begin to heal, you're going to see them merging into one giant white light in front of you. We're going to allow that to begin to rise up into source. And I want you to uproot all of these roots of beliefs that are embedded in the grid of the earth, because the origin point of all these different belief systems is encoded within that land. It is enforced within the matrix, the structures of belief systems that are compartmentalized from this grid system is enforcing the belief systems in the collective. And through your healing, you begin to reintegrate your fragments from this database of the earth. So allow yourself to release all of those roots of belief systems. And in your physical body that holds that cord, I want you to pull it out of your body. Just pull it out compassionately, lovingly, as you begin to bring source, white light, and saturating your own body with what you need in that moment. Now that you have learned what your ancestors needed, begin to take a look at yourself, your life in the present day, the past 24 hours, how your belief systems that have adopted from all of these lineages, you keep playing out that pattern. And what is it that you need? It might be at a very smaller effect, smaller version, but you're still playing it out. So what is it that you need in order to no longer feel that way? Go ahead and provide yourself with everything that you need from yourself in order to no longer embody that belief system. And don't just stay with one answer. if you discover that you're, let's say in this example, everyone is in survival mode. What do they need in order to no longer feel that they're in survival mode? Let's say the answer is trust. Okay, what is it that you need in order to trust yourself? And keep going. Let's say surrender. What do you need in order to be in a state of surrender from yourself? Okay, let's say in order to be in a state of surrender, for example, it's to see yourself as one, to see yourself as not separate. Okay, so I want you to keep going until you find the highest truth. And in this way, you are helping yourself understand how you're going to reach that. And you're going to apply it every day. Breathing deeply. Very good. Now, if you have children, I want you to also see your children in front of you. And I want you to notice how we are playing this same role out with our children. Okay. Are we teaching them? Are we creating an environment in which they're having to play the same role we played in our childhood or in our ancestors' life? You know, we create these environments. So are we creating that environment for our children? Or it could be your partner or, you know, your family. Are you perpetuating all of these cyclical patterns of trauma with your behavior? Take a look at that. And what is it that you need? What kind of changes can you make in your everyday life in order to no longer do that? It might be that you yourself being in this state of survival, for example, it feeds into their belief systems of survival. Okay, how are we reinforcing these belief systems with our own resistance to this belief? Okay, very good. So now that you have seen all these aspects of yourself and you're going to fulfill yourself with the parts that you need, I want you to ground yourself down to the center of the earth. You're going to start working with your root chakra. Go ahead and open that root chakra back into a balanced state. We're going to spin it as fast as possible, clearing out any blockages in the root chakra. Going up to the sacral, go ahead and open that root chakra back into a balanced state. Go ahead and go up to the solar plexus, opening it back into a balanced state. Heart, bringing it into a balanced state. The throat, the third eye. You're going to activate your crown. Go ahead and fill in your crown with your intention. What is your highest intention in the area of your career, of love, relationships, family, health, abundance, creation, spirituality, harmony, and purpose? Activate all areas of your life. Align yourself in all areas of your life with your highest expression. Go ahead and go up into your seventh chakra. Activate the seventh. Activate the eighth. Activate the ninth. Activate the 10th. Activate the 11th. Activate the 12th. Activate the 13th. And above you is a powerful white light of source. Go ahead and connect yourself up into source. This is who you are. You are pure infinite consciousness. Your unconditional love. Bring that down into your body, anchoring it down, and expand your light. Expand your light. Notice how there is so much more room now that you have this clarity to embody love, to embody source, peace, harmony. You are an anchor of this into the earth. So welcome back to being the true self. I want you to open your eyes And you're going to see yourself grounding, anchoring into the center of the earth, your pillar of white light, your chakras in perfect alignment, aware of your energetic space. Okay, very good. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that meditation, and I hope that it brought some light into some of the patterns that we are playing out in our everyday life, cyclical ancestral patterns of emotions. So if you have any questions, please put them down in the chat. Thank you so much for your super chats. I really want to tell you that it's a great support to me, and I love you very much. And thank you for your incredible questions, by the way. You guys have had so many. Let me see if I missed any other questions. If anybody else has anything else that they want to ask. Geraldine, how to stay neutral in the face of seeing a being of suffering, especially when empathic, suffering of animals, people, etc. Yeah, that's an amazing question. So how to stay neutral? Well, it comes down to this. What you're going to discover with all this kind of work. I mean, look at what we discovered today by looking at our ancestral trauma. There is no right and wrong. It is just cause and effect. Someone does something, another person behaves a certain way as a result of that. And everyone is surviving. Okay, everybody is surviving because we are vulnerable. When we come into this human vessel, it's all about feeling, sensation, the physical body. So we are in a very vulnerable state. And the moment we are born into this lifetime, it's a very violent birth. Okay, we're experiencing the senses heightened. So we are constantly experiencing things in such a physical density that it's very hard for us to remember that we are not this physical body. We are infinite source. We are light. Everything is energy. But we are reminding ourselves that we are not the sensory body, that's an illusion that we can actually control. We can master that. With our mind, this is why we have people that are drinking poison and surviving. They're transmuting that poison with their mind. People that heal themselves from stage 4 cancer overnight with their mind, with their thoughts, with their embodiment of their highest expression. They anchor a different state of being. Okay, so this is how our perception begins to change from right and wrong. Everything is cause and effect. There is no good and bad. Our application of meaning to what we're doing is what defines the experience. If we have a life of suffering and we say, I am a victim of that suffering, your entire body will have the responses necessary to see you as a victim. It can be all kinds of suffering, even more suffering, because your vibrational frequency is designed to embody that suffering and call experiences that keep you in that. Because that's the design of this existence, to survive. If we think we are helpless, then the universe will provide us with experiences that help us keep that helplessness until we wake up and we realize we're not helpless. And then that will shift. The universe will provide us with experiences that reinforce the belief that we're not helpless. So this is a consciousness experience, right? Consciousness, you observe it and it immediately changes. So we are the observer. This life is the experience, and we can change it at any minute, the moment you change your belief system. Okay, so that being said, let's apply this understanding. These are fundamental laws of creation to these experiences. An empath means that you have tools that link you to the non-physical, but you have to understand how to use them. We don't have those empathic tools in order to be in a heightened sense of suffering. We have those tools to master the physical and the non-physical realm. So now that you can tune into information, you have to learn how to utilize key information to help you heal, expand, and come into your highest expression. Not survival anymore, to thrive. So this means that we have to choose wisely the application of meaning. And suffering in itself becomes a choice. And we also have to respect others that want to continue living in suffering, because some people, they're not ready to move out of that comfort zone. So you can lecture them, teach them, show them all the tools, and unless they want to pull themselves out of suffering, they won't. And you might kill yourself your entire life trying to change them. But this is where the law of free will is incredibly important to understand, that every single organism has the choice to choose their experience as well as you. So the thing is, you have to be this is where we apply knowledge into wisdom. We begin to take accountability for ourselves and understand that we can only help others when we come into our highest expression. So we have to anchor and understand unconditional love, embody the source, the self-love to the self, and from there be an example to all the other things around us. And it's a cultivation of life force. We deplete ourselves when we judge something as negative. It's that it doesn't really serve anything. It's just information, and the ego is the one that thrives off the definition of things because it has something to do. But the higher mind, the higher self, the source, it doesn't require those definitions because it understands that it's everything. It is suffering, it is joy, harmony, laughter, crying, all the things are a part of this human experience. And the most freeing, liberating, and empowering way for the human to be is to be in a state of non-judgmental observer. You're going to cultivate life force. You're going to heal your body. You're going to empower, you're going to activate higher tools like intuition that will allow you even more vision of more things. And that means that you have to train all of these things in all dimensional planes, because people that are empathic begin to have interdimensional contact. And then, they start suffering in that realm too. And it's the same thing. We have to apply the same laws. We are everything. And that means that there's a certain responsibility and way of existing when you understand that. So I hope that answers that question. We can talk a lot more about that, but that's just a brief answer to that. Thank you so much, Truth Seeker. Sam, thank you. This all makes sense. Amazing. Thank you very much, Sam. Greg, I'm going to need several more lifetimes to heal all this trauma. Greg, no, you won't. No, you won't, Greg. I was able to do this in 2 months. If I can do this, me, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. Okay? Because it's just patterns. And actually, what it all trickles down to is understanding why in all of these choices from birth until now, we choose fear over love. That's the homework. Why do we choose fear over love? If you understand that, you're going to understand it from millions of different perspectives of yourself in whole different experiences. The story doesn't matter so much. And I know that some people are like, what do you mean? I went through the trauma and this person did this and that. I went through that and then I had to do this. We are locked into the stories of our lives, but we are not our stories. But we need to take the lessons and use those to evolve and turn them into wisdom. So we just need to understand why we are consistently choosing fear over love, or why we're not using love, why we're not choosing love over fear. Those are two very important questions, and that's all it comes down to. In this lifetime, in all your other lifetimes, you're going to be discovering the same because you're in a 3-dimensional plane, okay? So thank you so much, everyone. Let me see. Did I miss anyone? Eris, thank you so much. Infinite Being. Eugene, so good to see you from Peru. Hello. Greg says, is it necessary to have emotional release? I want you to be, hopefully in this session, you were able to kind of tune into that, but allow whatever comes up to happen. And the more you observe the emotion, the more information you will get. And that information will help you release. You'll notice that your body begins to adjust. Laura Vladimir, thank you so much from New Zealand. Much love. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Tesseract. Stephanie, I totally needed to hear this today. I got shingles from overdoing my physical body and not listening to who I am. Yep, Stephanie. Sending you healing, my love. I hope you recover soon. Thank you so much. Greg, love you. Please have patience, everyone. Thank you so much, Tesseract. Have an amazing day. I'll see you tomorrow.